Gabimaru is sentenced to execution, but to everyone's shock, the executioner's sword breaks against his neck, which remains unharmed. He wonders why he can't seem to die, even though he has no reason to live. A female inspector questions him, curious about his strange strength and his ninjutsu abilities, though he refuses to show her. After several failed execution attempts, including burning and being stabbed, Gabimaru reveals parts of his past during another interview. He explains that he was orphaned when his village chief killed his parents, and that he was raised as a shinobi to kill without question. He lived without dreams or purpose, but was betrayed and captured after trying to leave his village. Gabimaru survives yet another execution attempt, this time being torn apart by bulls, frustrating the shinobi. The inspector notices subtle signs that he's resisting death and asks why he wanted to leave Iwagakure. Gabimaru explains that he was married to the chief's daughter, a kind and ordinary woman whose influence made it hard for him to continue his life as a killer. Wanting a solution, he asked the chief for help but was sent on a mission that led to him getting betrayed. Although he knew it was a trap, he accepted his fate, knowing that escaping would only make things worse. The inspector learns about Gabimaru's violent reputation and a rumor that Iwagakure shinobi used the elixir of life, which grants immortality. Gabimaru reflects on his actions and realizes he may actually want to live. During another execution attempt, the inspector reveals herself as Yamada Isaeman Sagiri, a skilled executioner. She explains that Gabimaru's will to survive comes from his love for his wife. After remembering her kindness, Gabimaru admits she might be right, so Sagiri offers him a chance at freedom if he retrieves the elixir of life from Shinsenkyo, a dangerous island, and Gabimaru agrees, determined to go back to his wife. Sagiri remembers her childhood, when she admired her father's skill with the sword. Her inspiration came after seeing him execute a storyteller whose headless body continued speaking, unaware it was dead. Now an adult, Sagiri carries out executions but struggles emotionally with the burden of taking lives. Yamada Isaeman Aizen notices her hesitation and warns her that fear and doubt only add to the suffering. Despite her efforts to overcome her fear, she remains haunted after every execution and wonders if she could ever take a life without hesitation. In Edo, death row convicts gather before the shogun Takugawa Narayoshi, who offers them pardons if they retrieve the elixir of life from the mysterious Shinsenkyo island. Sagiri recognizes some of the criminals, including Adachi Matagoro, who is excited to kill without consequences if pardoned. Gabimaru, wearing a mask, complains to Sagiri about needing air invisibility, but she refuses to remove it. A retainer shows them the person who went to the island, whose corpse is now completely covered in flowers. When one convict chooses to leave, Aizen swiftly beheads him as a warning. The convicts learn they will be closely monitored by the Isaeman, and protecting their monitors is essential to avoid execution. The shogun orders the convicts to reduce their numbers, and they all start fighting each other to the death. During the chaos, Aizen criticizes Sagiri, not believing she can handle the mission. Thinking about her family's deep connection to death, Sagiri decides to accept her role. When attacked, she kills her attackers but struggles internally before Gabimaru steps in and only kills when he's forced to defend himself. With 10 survivors left, the massacre ends and each convict is paired with an Isaeman to start the mission. Gabimaru recalls witnessing the Iwagakure chief demonstrate his immortality by taking fatal attacks from several shinobi. The chief claimed his immortality came from a special medicine obtained from a distant land, leading Gabimaru to believe in the elixir of life, though he doubts it's on their island. As they explore, Sagiri admires the beautiful scenery, but Gabimaru warns that it feels unnatural and dangerous. When Gabimaru removes his hand bindings, Sagiri orders him to put them back on, threatening to execute him if he disobeys. Although frustrated, Gabimaru agrees but is interrupted when warped Kian attacks him with an iron ball. However, he swiftly survives by dislocating his neck. Sagiri notices Kian's hands are unbound and questions Kisho, his monitor, who dismisses her concerns and talks down on her for always following rules. Kian challenges Gabimaru to fight, believing it's best to eliminate competitors early. Despite not wanting to waste time, Gabimaru kills Kian and tells Sagiri they need to refocus on their mission. Kisho takes Kian's head and warns Sagiri that the criminals are going wild on the island. He advises her to stay alert, muttering that the mission might decide the next leader of the Isaeman clan. Meanwhile, Aizen is killed by Rokuroda, Shobi kills Horubo, and Akaginu is executed by her Isaeman. Gabimaru and Sagiri fight after Gabimaru thinks of killing her to avoid any distractions, guess he's still an edgy teenager despite having a wife. However, they both hesitate, and Gabimaru remembers his wife's belief in the strength of emotions, which clashes with his training to suppress them. Sagiri realizes Gabimaru is haunted by his actions and acknowledges her own feelings. She spares him, telling him to face his humanity. Meanwhile, Gantetsuzai finds some strange statues and human-faced butterflies, cutting off his hand to stop a transformation. Gabimaru and Sagiri then run into a six-armed fish creature, so Gabimaru steps forward to fight, telling her to stay back. Gantetsusai remembers being hired by a daimyo who, after drinking with him, mocked his title and doubted he could kill a dragon. Angry, Gantetsusai attacked by slashing the daimyo's gate, which had a dragon design. Now on the island, he and his Isaman monitor, Fuchi, discuss his past. Fuchi, confused by Gantetsusai's behavior, listens as Gantetsusai reveals his plan to destroy the daimyo's mansion if he's pardoned. Gantetsusai inquires about Fuchi's ability to separate himself from his emotions despite his role as an executioner. Fuchi defends his clan's work in both executions and medicine, but warns Gantetsusai not to insult him. Gantetsusai dismisses the tension, cuts off his restraints, and focuses on eliminating competitors to enjoy the battles and extend his search for the elixir of life. Fuchi privately agrees with his logic but doubts the mission's success, considering the Shogun's impatience. As they proceed, they notice strange statues and spot a monster from afar. Meanwhile, Gabimaru fights the fish monster and tells Sagiri to stay away. Remembering his chief's advice not to fight unknown enemies, he decides to retreat but finds himself surrounded by more creatures. Determined, he activates Ninpo, Hiboshi, and resolves to kill them all, focused on his goal of earning a pardon. Sagiri watches in awe, amazed by his skill and strength, but soon has to defend herself from an attacking monster. Gabimaru saves her without fully understanding why he stepped in, and just as he's about to be attacked, Yuzuriha steps in. She proposes teaming up, but Gabimaru, concerned about her manipulative methods, remains suspicious. She offers information about the island, including details about human-faced insects, while her monitor, Senta, tells them about the island's religious symbols. Gabimaru reluctantly agrees to the alliance but doesn't fully trust Yuzuriha. Sagiri, overwhelmed by the chaos, suddenly faints. Meanwhile, the brothers Chobi and Toma battle monsters, with Chobi determined to find the elixir of life. Sagiri wakes up from a nightmare to find Genji informing her that the group moved to a cave after she collapsed from the butterfly's poison. Outside, she sees Gabimaru preparing food, Senta mending her clothes, and Yuzuriha relaxing. Senta suggests discussing the island's mysteries over their meal, and Yuzuriha is disappointed when Gabimaru serves Kikatsugen. Gabimaru explains that he scouted the island but found no clear signs of the elixir of life. Avoiding details about the Iwagakure chief's immortality, he denies knowing more about the elixir, which makes Yuzuriha suspicious. He adds that he saw strange plant species and samurai corpses covered by flowers, but assures the group he avoided using them as ingredients. Senta suggests focusing on the island's statue, and Sagiri adds that the monsters don't have any organs and look like poorly crafted gods. Genji advises Sagiri to return to Ito, doubting her strength, but she decides to stay. Meanwhile, Tenza and Narugai try to escape by boat. However, they notice several wrecked ships around them and run into giant tentacles. Tenza encourages Narugai to fight for survival, reigniting her will to live. After escaping, Narugai reveals she is female, surprising Tenza, after which they decide to look for allies to leave the island. Later, Sagiri declares her samurai path to Genji, who disagrees. They annoyingly start arguing but are interrupted when Rokuroda fatally wounds Genji, shocking Sagiri. In a flashback, a young Rokuroda is shown eating rocks, but as he grows up, he ends up killing his parents and destroying his village. In the present, Genji saves Sagiri from Rokuroda's attack, but is gravely injured. He urges her to escape, but she refuses to leave. Gabimaru steps in, testing Rokuroda's strength after his initial attack fails. He asks Yuzuriha for help, but she refuses, reminding him of their agreement. Gabimaru uses his ninjutsu techniques, but they have no effect on Rokuroda. As Genji is dying, he acknowledges Sagiri's ability to balance her emotion and logic. He gives her his sword and asks her to defeat Rokuroda. Gabimaru and Sagiri come up with a plan to attack Rokuroda's legs to weaken him, but Sagiri struggles to focus due to her emotions. Remembering Genji's advice, she calms herself and continues the fight. When Rokuroda lets his guard down due to his hunger, Gabimaru gets hurt but keeps going as Sagiri detrimentally blocks Rokuroda's attacks. Gabimaru decides to use fire to create carbon monoxide and weaken Rokuroda. He sets the forest on fire with his ninjutsu, causing Rokuroda to slowly start suffocating. This gives Sagiri the chance to calm herself, strike, and behead him. Later, Sagiri thinks about Rokuroda's sad life and wishes him peace. She and Gabimaru escape the flames, mourning the loss of Genji and Aizen. They meet up with Yuzuriha and Senta and find a mysterious village, which they believe might belong to the Sennin. Meanwhile, Chobi and Toma find two women making love in a ruined spot. Chobi and Toma quickly realize the two women are not human. The pink-haired woman's flirtatious behavior makes them uneasy, while the blonde transforms into an angry man, shocking them. Meanwhile, Gabimaru's group discovers a ruined village that may belong to the Sennin. Gabimaru notices a hooded figure spying on them, who turns out to be a little girl. She runs away, seeing which he and Sagiri chase after her while Yuzuri tests her ninjutsu on a tree-like monster. Gabimaru catches the girl but frightens her, so Sagiri quickly steps in to reassure her they mean no harm. The girl takes them to an abandoned, foggy spot to meet a tree creature named Hoko, who explains that the island is called Kotaku and that the elixir of life, known as Tan, is located in Horai at the island's center. He warns them about the Sennin, led by the Immortal Lord Tenzin, who control the island and turn intruders into flowers. Despite this, Gabimaru remains focused on finding the elixir. Hoko shows them his regenerative powers to prove what he's saying, but the group remains cautious. Meanwhile, Chobi and Toma fight the two beings who shockingly reveal that they can regenerate their bodies. After Chobi and Tom are slowly overwhelmed, they get thrown into a pit of human flowers after being defeated. When the group reaches Hoko's village, Yuzuriha eagerly takes a bath and Sagiri joins her to monitor her actions. Mei, the little girl, helps Sagiri as Gabimaru recalls his wife's advice about relaxation and encourages Mei to accept her scars, surprising Sagiri. Sagiri mutters that women sometimes don't have that option. However, Gabimaru disagrees, explaining that he knows a woman who has a scar on her face and there's no one more beautiful than her, surprising Sagiri. Giga-chat theme starts playing. As they start leaving, she inwardly remarks that he might be starting to change little by little as Gabimaru remembers the chief and realizes he doesn't have time to sit around chatting. In a flashback, young Tenza, living in the slums and treated poorly by others, spent his time stealing, killing, and aimlessly wandering. One day, he got into a fight with some samurai after hearing them insult him, but was stopped by Yamada Aseman Cheyenne, who pointed his sword at him. In the present, Tenza and Nurugai search the coast of the island for a current to take them home, but have no luck. When Nurugai criticizes their plan, Tenza defends it, saying it's the safest way to avoid the dangers in the woods, which impresses her. Suddenly, a mysterious woman appears, saying she heard strange noises and found dead bodies. The woman's body changes into a man, shocking both Tenza and Nurugai. The Tenzin attacks, knocking Tenza away and targeting Nurugai, but she avoids the attack. Tenza tries to strike the Tenzin, but finds its wounds heal right away. As they try to escape, Cheyenne arrives and kills the Tenzin, telling him to run. Later, Cheyenne criticizes Tenza's sword skills and asks why he's protecting Nurugai, so he says she deserves to be free. Cheyenne, moved by Tenza's words, agrees but warns him of consequences if protecting her harms the clan. He then reveals that Nurugai is a woman, surprising them both. Later, the Tenzin attacks again, injuring Cheyenne. Tenza tries to fight back but fails. Realizing he won't survive, Tenza sacrifices himself to give Cheyenne and Nurugai a chance to escape. As he dies, he imagines a future where he becomes an instructor and marries Nurugai. The Tenzin kills him, admiring his strength, after which Cheyenne carries Nurugai away, fulfilling Tenza's last wish, while she vows to get revenge. In a flashback, Tenza lands a hit on Cheyenne and asks to continue training despite this, so Cheyenne slowly agrees. Senta struggles to make sense of the confusing information gathered at Hoko's house. Sagiri notices his weariness and suggests he take a break. While keeping watch, Senta falls asleep, giving Gabimaru the opportunity to leave for Horai, despite Senda's earlier warning to proceed with a solid plan. As Gabimaru moves through the dense mist, he sees tree-like figures like Hoko, chanting sutras, before finally arriving at Horai's gates. At the gates, Gabimaru faces the Tenzin who killed Tenza. He suspects the woman before him is not human. The Tenzin dismisses Gabimaru, explaining that she turns humans into the elixir of life. Gabimaru attacks but quickly realizes her incredible strength and ability to heal instantly. He uses his ninjutsu to burn her, but she regenerates and counters with even greater force. Despite his injuries, Gabimaru fights on, remembering his wife. He notices one of his kicks actually hurts the Tenzin, shocking her. The Tenzin transforms into a monstrous flower-like creature and unleashes lightning attacks. Severely injured, Gabimaru wearily dreams of being with his wife, but he suddenly wakes and realizes he's still fighting. As he struggles, the Tenzin strangles him, but Gabimaru activates his ninjutsu to free himself. Bro really tried fighting a literal god. Mei suddenly appears and uses her powers to create a crater, helping Gabimaru escape, after which the Tenzin reverts to her original form. Meanwhile, Senta apologizes to Sagiri for letting Gabimaru go. Hoko offers to guide them to Horai, believing Mai followed Gabimaru. Yuzuriel agrees, learning from Hoko that his people were transformed into trees 1,000 years ago, hoping their souls could reach Horai. In Horai, the Tenzin discuss the human intruders, while Gabimaru wakes up to see Tamiya Gantetsuze and Isaman Fuchi in front of him. Gabimaru meets Fuchi and Gantetsuze, who question his bloody appearance and wonder if he is about to die. They both briefly assess each other's strength, but Fuchi interrupts, suggesting they should get information from Gabimaru instead of killing him. Gabimaru, sensing their strength, asks to form an alliance. Gantetsuze tests him by drawing his sword, but Gabimaru insists on working together. When Gabimaru mentions Lord Tenzin, both criminals are interested. Gantetsuze agrees to join him, motivated by his desire to become a legendary warrior and defeat Lord Tenzin. Fuchi, though doubtful, is also curious about immortals and agrees to the partnership. Gabimaru prepares to share more information, but is surprised to see Mai, who has grown slightly and can speak his name now. Mai reveals that Tao, a powerful energy, can defeat Lord Tenzin. They suddenly realize that they are being approached by Sashin. Gantetsuze attacks the monsters, hoping to learn more about Tao as Gabimaru spots another, unfamiliar monster in the distance. Meanwhile, Senta explains that the island is a mix of man-made religions designed to return transformed humans to the mainland. He also believes that the ruler is searching for the elixir, as Sajiri says Gabimaru is alive, remembering his desire to return to his wife. Hoko explains that Tao is an energy that grants divine powers when mastered, as Shion continues training Narugai, teaching her to sense the waves of the world and that she needs to have balance. Meanwhile, Chobe escapes a pit with Toma, planning revenge on Lord Tenzin. When they run into Adachi, Chobe fights back, determined to find Lord Tenzin. Toma tries to reach Chobe after the Dashi attacks him, but is stopped by the Soshin. The Dashi plans to drag Chobe back to the pit, but Chobe wakes up and attacks, holding the monster for letting its guard down. He then tells Toma to handle the Soshin, and Chobe notices that his throat has healed, realizing that the Dashi's power might be the key to defeating the Tenzin. The Dashi, seeing Chobe's strength growing, decides to eliminate him. Chobe blocks the Dashi's invisible attacks, even though his arms break and heal quickly. Chobe finds this new power useful despite the Dashi warning him that he might lose his humanity. He recalls a moment from his past when he protected his brother from bandits and charges at the Dashi, attacking its weak spot on the stomach. The Dashi suffers, and Chobe is more determined to find Lord Tenzin. Meanwhile, Gantetsuze fights the Soshin to learn Tao, with Mai pointing out that he's focusing on the wrong approach. Fuchi is pleased with their progress and wonders who Mai is. Gabimaru recalls how Mai helped him escape before and becomes suspicious of her true nature. Gabimaru and Gantetsuze discuss their rivalry, but when Adachi arrives to attack Gantetsuze, they learn that Mai is connected to Lord Tenzin. Gabimaru quickly shields her from the Dashi, even though the Dashi tells him it's none of his concern. The Dashi explain that Mei's unique yin chi is needed for their Tao training. Gabimaru, angry at their plans to use her, becomes furious, and as the Dashi transform using Tao, Gabimaru and Gantetsuze prepare to fight it. Gabimaru unlocks his ability to sense Tao, using it to defeat the Centipede and Butterfly Doshi. He demands information from the Centipede Doshi, who reveals that Lord Tenzin sent them to spy on humans, confirming their threat, so Gabimaru and Gantetsuze defeat them. Meanwhile, Shion and Narugai arrive at Hojo, and Mudan kills Hoko, shocking the others. Mudan reveals that Sagiri, Yuzuriha, and Senta are the first humans to reach Horai in 1,000 years. He catches Yuzuriha, who tried to escape in fear, and says he doesn't plan to kill her yet. Sagiri tells him to let Yuzuriha go and asks his identity, so Hoko answers, calling Mudan one of Lord Tenzin's followers. Mudan explains that the island is used for life experiments and Hoko's people were merely prototypes. He introduces his Kyoshi, humans he's experimented on, and orders them to restrain Yuzuriha. Mudan also dismisses the idea of the elixir of life, explaining that Tao turns humans into trees, and Lord Tenzin continues his research on it, hearing which Sajiri starts worrying for Gabimaru, realizing that the pardon might not be possible. Mudan offers to teach Yuzuriha Tao, but is interrupted by Senta, who draws his sword to protect her. Mudan easily dodges their attacks as Sagiri comes up with a strategy to attack his stomach based on Tao theory. However, he reveals that attacks without Tao cannot hurt him, but suddenly senses Sagiri's Tao, realizing it has a poisonous effect on him. Mudan becomes intrigued, sensing her potential, and as they start fighting, Yuzuriha and Senta help Sagiri defeat Mudan. Yuzuriha restrains him, allowing Sagiri to land a critical blow, slashing off Mudan's tendon and defeating him. After the battle, Sagiri checks on Hoko, who is still alive. She starts thinking about the fact that there isn't an elixir of life, while Yuzuriha suggests they find another way. Meanwhile, Gabimaru, still struggling with his Tao, faints after realizing he can't ask the Dashi about the elixir. As Mudan's body begins to sprout flowers, Senta is suddenly stung by a flower. Mudan transforms into his Kichikai form, but before he can attack, Shion rushes in and saves Sagiri and Yuzuriha. Cheyenne quickly orders Nurugai to handle the flowers growing from Senta and move the women to safety. He prepares for battle, using what he's learned about Tao as Senta's condition worsens despite the flowers being removed. Yuzuriha hurriedly helps by applying a salve to stop the bleeding, and as Xian fights Mudan, Sagiri worries for him, but Nurugai reassures her that he won't die. Cheyenne swiftly avoids Mudan's attacks and begins leaving wounds that can't heal, which makes Sagiri realize his Tao is capable of slaying the Tenzin. However, he starts to bloom flowers from the stinger's scratches and loses blood while fighting. Mudan mocks him, but Cheyenne declares that he's willing to sacrifice himself if it means defeating the monster. Seeing Cheyenne in danger, Sagiri says they should help, but Yuzuriha decides to sit out, too exhausted to continue. However, Nurugai suddenly hugs them both, hoping to replenish their strength using Tao. Feeling stronger, Sagiri rushes to help Cheyenne and they come up with a plan to strike Mudan's tendon, with Sagiri and Nurugai acting as decoys while Cheyenne charges in to land the final blow. Despite their efforts, Cheyenne struggles to attack it, but Senta yells for him to target Mudan's plant-like ovule. Cheyenne follows the advice, slashing it and exposing multiple heads of Mudan. In his final moments, Mudan slowly thanks Cheyenne for ending his 1,000-year wait. Later, Yuzuriha suggests using the salve to heal Cheyenne's injuries as Senta's condition is beyond saving. Senta, accepting his fate, imagines being held by Yuzuriha. Cheyenne and Sagiri and the group decide to leave the area to regroup. Later, Yuzuriha suggests that the elixir of life could have been an illusion. She also asks if Gabimaru's wife really exists, since they wouldn't let such a young shinobi get married, and it might be some sort of memory impairment, shocking Sagiri. Meanwhile, Gabimaru isn't able to remember anything other than who he is, and Mai surprisingly realizes there isn't any Tao in his head. Sagiri wonders where Gabimaru is right now, hearing which Cheyenne says she feels really strongly for Gabimaru and asks what he is to her, so she admits she doesn't believe he's a bad person even if he's a killer, and hopes he can reunite with his wife. Meanwhile, Gabimaru tries remembering the person he's thinking about. My guy really got Alzheimer in a fantasy island.